What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I am going to be reviewing Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars, a new book which bridges the gap between the video games Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and the upcoming Star Wars Jedi Survivor. As you may know if you've been following the channel, I have recently been replaying Fallen Order on live streams, and just finished the core storyline of the game, so this book came along at just the right time for me. Since this is a relatively recent book, I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, although this book does deal heavily with events that transpire in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, but I'm not sure why you'd be reading this book or watching this review having not played Fallen Order, so without further ado, let's get into it. Right away, something that stood out to me in this book was how it visualized things we would see as the player if this were a video game. For example, at the beginning of the book, Cal must make his way through a very small gap between two buildings. This is a reference to the sections of Fallen Order where you had to squeeze through a very small opening or crevice of some type. Even at the end of the book, Cal must use his rebreather device to dive underwater in order to infiltrate a prison. There were, of course, portions of Fallen Order where you were required to dive underwater in order to access collectibles or to continue the story. I just think it's neat how it felt like it resided within the world of the video game, while still being in a written form. And there are a ton of fun references to things from Fallen Order in this book, like the pink poncho or the infamous Ogdo Bogdo. Even Trilla is name-dropped a few times, of course the main antagonist of the game and Cere's former Padawan, but she isn't just name-dropped for the sake of substanceless fan service. She is used as a point of comparison for Cal, who fears that should he not change his ways or line of thinking, may go down a similarly dark path. Which shows that the author of this book, Sam Maggs, clearly cares about these characters. Our main cast are given some pretty great development in this book and go through some very interesting arcs by the end of it. It's cool to see a small group of characters trying to take down the Empire in a time shortly before the rebellion even takes form. It's briefly mentioned in this book that Bail Organa is assumed to have thrown in his lot with the Empire. We know that in reality he is one of the founding members of the rebellion, but on the surface level to people out there in the galaxy like Cal and his crew, he seems like just yet another Imperial zealot. Anyone who has played Jedi Fallen Order knows that Cal Kestis is an incredibly selfless character, and this book explores how that can be to his detriment sometimes. Almost everyone he's known has died, so he feels a moral obligation to do everything himself. He refuses the help of those he cares about out of fear that he'll lose them, and he constantly puts his life on the line in order to protect theirs. If you think about it, in Fallen Order, Cal was on his own most of the time. During most of his missions, he was isolated from the rest of the crew, but after years have gone by, he's grown closer with them and refuses to put them in harm's way. But in this book, he gets caught in some situations he can't make his way out of alone, and must allow his new family to help him. To quote Master Yoda, he must let go of what he fears to lose. Cere is another character who constantly struggles with her inner darkness. We saw this fully on display in Jedi Fallen Order, and at the end of that game, she was able to bring Trilla back to the light for a brief moment by apologizing and admitting to her mistakes. She knows better than anyone that the Inquisitors weren't born evil. They were conditioned that way through the Empire's torture. In this book, when she is brought face to face with the fifth brother, Cere believes she can reach him the same way she did Trilla. Unfortunately in life, some people are just beyond saving, but Cere fails to realize that, and there are disastrous consequences. She also begins a new journey in this book, collecting ancient Jedi artifacts to create a legacy for the Jedi Order. She tells Cal that if they cannot create a new Jedi Order, then the least they can do is preserve their history. And that's something I wish had been explored more, how Cal's decision at the end of Fallen Order affected Cere, because the entire plot of Jedi Fallen Order was the crew of the Mantis trying to get their hands on Eno Cordova's holocron, which contained a list of Force-sensitive children. At the end of the game, Cal makes the decision to destroy the holocron to prevent anyone from having access to the next generation of Jedi. We as the player understand and agree with Cal's decision to destroy the holocron. We saw how his experiences over the course of that story influenced his choice. But Cere wasn't given any say in the matter. Her goal, long before Cal joined the crew, was to restore the Jedi Order. Destroying the holocron means that dream of rebuilding the Jedi Order is now completely gone. How does Cere feel about that? Is she angry or resentful towards Cal? We don't know, because they don't touch on that at all in this book, which I found to be quite disappointing, but fingers crossed they'll explore this in Jedi Survivor. Merrin is the character I am most conflicted on in this book, but she does have a solid character arc. She is by no means a stupid person. If anything, she offered up some of the greatest wisdom in Fallen Order, causing Cal to question whether or not training a new generation of Jedi was the right thing to do. But all of her people were slaughtered when she was very young. She's naive and inexperienced socially, so she wants to form emotional connections, which leads to her placing trust in people she probably shouldn't. The most static character in the book is probably Grease. He doesn't get a lot of development, but I don't think that was needed, because he's the voice of reason for most of the story. His goals are purely to look out for those he cares about, and I'd argue he ends up losing the most by the end because of that. Unfortunately, that's usually the way things go. The innocent often suffer unjustly. The book does a good job of selling you on the fact that the crew of the Mantis are a family now. They've grown over the past several years and really do care about each other. Which leads me into one of my biggest problems with the book. It won't stop telling you how much these characters love each other and view each other as a family. At a certain point, I was just like, okay, I got that the first 5 times you mentioned it, and now you won't stop telling me. I understand that they love each other and see each other as a family. I get it, okay? Now, the main point of controversy surrounding this book is the relationship between Merrin and Fret, this former Imperial who the crew are forced to work with for most of the book. My problems with this plotline don't come from the fact that Merrin is gay. That was actually foreshadowed all the way back in Fallen Order. It's nothing new. I can't believe we've gotten to a point where saying it's woke is actually considered a valid criticism by some people. My problem is, it just felt underdeveloped, and the ultimate resolution was poorly executed in my opinion. When Fret is introduced at the beginning of the book, the crew doesn't trust her, and you aren't meant to either. She seems like an emotionally manipulative person who's using Merrin to get what she wants. And I thought they were committing to that. There's a point where it seems like she has committed the ultimate act of betrayal, but then they do a bunch of backpedaling, try to turn her into a sympathetic anti-hero. They all go their separate ways and decide to remain friends. I understand the purpose Fret serves in Merrin's story. The second Merrin sees Fret, she is immediately taken by her, and I think that happens to all of us. We all have someone who enters our lives that we begin to feel a certain way about, which can't really be explained. I don't think Fret had to be evil through and through. I just can't stand this trope in any media where we are told the character who has been established as nothing but a backstabbing, traitorous piece of scum is just misunderstood. They've got their own problems. and they get let off the hook because of that. I will also say that the plot of this book wasn't anything special, and I suppose the same could be said about Fallen Order. The plot of that game was really secondary to Cal's personal journey, and the same applies here. A lot of the character beats were very strong, in my opinion, but the plot was just kind of inconsequential. Overall, this book was a fun read. It's not super long, I finished it in a couple days, and as I said, it does have some problems. They remind you way too often how much the team cares about each other, and while I respect what they tried to do with Fret's character, they really missed the mark on that, in my opinion. But this book did its job. It further developed the characters and got me even more hyped for Jedi Survivor. But you guys let me know, what are your thoughts on Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Just whatever your thoughts are. Please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.